we will now move on to the next panel discussion, which is a technology panel on shaping the digital revolution, the future roadmap. And we have a couple of panelists. Let me introduce them. Our first panelist is Mr. Ninad Raji, who is the Director and CIO of Health Assure. Mr. Ninad Raji is a visionary information technology, healthcare, insurance, and financial services senior leadership professional. He is an information technology, strategy, and operations senior leader with 26 plus years of experience in strategy, governance, innovation, operations, and technology, with demonstrated ability to manage executive level relationships and manage multiple disparate teams. At Health Assure, along with his core portfolio of information technology, he drives the 4 Ps: people, performance, productivity, and profitability, along with customer experience, and is deeply entrenched in growing the organization multifold. We warmly welcome you, Mr. Ninad Raji, sir. Our next panelist will be Ms. Sudipta Basu, who is the General Manager Telecom, Power Grid Corporation of India Limited. Ms. Sudipta Basu has served for more than 27 years in the flagship organization of the Indian power sector, Power Grid Corporation of India Limited. She is working as Head of Telecom, Engineering and Projects and Network Security Division, and has been engaged in conceptualizing to commissioning of state-of-the-art telecom network and cybersecurity related projects. Her responsibility includes planning and designing, including testing, commissioning, and project implementation. She was fortunate to be associated with World Bank funded SCADA and EMS projects of Power Grid since inception to implementation. Recently, she has taken the charge of Telecom Marketing Division at Power Grid. We warmly welcome Ms. Sudipta Basu today. And our next panelist will be Mr. Krishnenjit Roy, who's the Senior Vice President Technology at BankBazaar.com. Mr. Roy has 20 plus years of experience in application design development, production support, infrastructure design, implementing large networks and system architecture for various applications with enterprise security management. He is proficient in scheduling projects to deliver maximum ROI within the shortest time by increasing offshoring and productivity. We warmly welcome you, Mr. Krishnenjit Roy, sir. And we have our last finalist, which is panelist, Mr. Ashok Cherian, who is the CIO of Page Industries Limited. Mr. Ashok Cherian is a digital business transformation enthusiast, focused on business-oriented IT leadership, having excelled in diversity ranging from core FMCG consumer goods, building materials, manufacturing, apparel, trading, and retail domains. Mr. Cherian has mastered Malcolm Baldrige, the world-renowned industry-agnostic process excellence model, which enabled him to lead organizational transformation and change. Mr. Cherian has over 26 years of experience with over 14 years as CIO in driving digital strategy, planning, operations, infrastructure, security, business partnering, and applications with cross-cultural engagements across geographies, including India, USA, UAE, UK, China, Australia, and Hong Kong. We warmly welcome you, Mr. Ashok Cherian, sir, as a panelist. And our chairperson and moderator for today's technology panel discussion is Mr. Harish Agarwal, who's the partner Ernst & Young LLP, and he's also the COO of Ernst & Young India Consulting. Mr. Harish Agarwal is the managing partner for Kolkata and Bangladesh offices of PNY. He's a chartered accountant and a certified information systems auditor. He has led several large engagements within India and abroad. He has launched the software asset management solution at EY and led the teams supporting large software vendors in conducting SAM reviews as well as license compliance reviews. He has set up the IT risk assurance team at EY's Global Delivery Services Center and led it for 5 years. Mr. Agarwal has worked across a broad range of companies in telecom, IT, ITES, and entertainment sectors across several geographies across USA, Europe, and Asia. I warmly welcome our chairperson and moderator, and I welcome the other panelists. Just a little note, Mr. Umesh Mehta was supposed to join the panel, but he just informed us that there's some medical emergency and he could not join today. But we have some 4 great panelists, and I would like to hand over the session, the tech panel on shaping the digital revolution, the future roadmap, to our chairperson and moderator, Mr. Harish Agarwal, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Raki. A very warm welcome to all of you at the Infocom. The second, I would say, digital version of Infocom. I moved to Calcutta about 6 years ago, and I've been attached with Infocom since then. And I used to really look forward to the month of December, the first week of December, where I would get to interact with technology leaders from around the country who would visit Calcutta. But for the last 2 years, we've been doing it digitally, and so we shall. And we'll talk about this topic today, shaping the digital revolution, the future roadmap. And one day I was sitting and thinking about what was the single biggest enabler of digital in our lifetime. And maybe my co-panelists will correct me, they will add to this, but my personal experience was the iPhone probably was the single biggest enabler of digital, particularly when it came to consumer, because it impacted so many things. Online mapping would not have been possible if you didn't have a smartphone which was always connected. Social media, the way we use it now, on the go, would not have been possible. Weather, we now look at weather as an unavailable, anytime available thing. Again, very iPhone/smartphone driven. Things like Uber would have never happened if you didn't have an iPhone. Things like the organizations which deliver food to us at home wouldn't have happened if there was no iPhone. And I think this topic will be really on enterprise, and we'll talk about how our co-panelists are seeing digital impact them and their organizations and their surroundings in the enterprise. But on the consumer, at least the answer that in my mind I came up with was 2007, which is when the smartphone was launched, the iPhone was launched. Before that, I think the single biggest impact was really the internet. But since the iPhone, I think the third real biggest enabler of digital has been the current pandemic that we have been living in. It's forced us to do work from anywhere. We've had, I've personally participated in weddings over Zoom. I have participated in Zoom cocktails. And I'm really honestly tired of doing Zoom cocktails, and look forward to pandemic being over. But that probably has been the third biggest enabler, I would say, of the digital revolution in our lifetime. It's significantly changed the way we communicate. It's got its pluses. I think, in the past, Raki would probably struggle to get these luminaries in Calcutta at the same time on the same dais. But digitally, we can now connect with people all over the world, and get them to take out some time. We save time in the travel. So that's the pluses. And before I jump into start asking questions to my panelists, I was looking at some of the priorities that I saw for organizations. And in 2021, the biggest priorities for organizations were teams can collaborate effectively. I think that was the biggest priority for organization in the digital world. But if I see now for 22, they are saying improving operational efficiency, improving productivity, and creating better connected experiences. And then this third one is something that I think all of us as human beings, as social animals, I think we need the need for connectivity. But the other thing that I was reading is what Satya Nadella is calling the Great Reshuffle, or the word that is being used, the Great Resignation. We are all aware that any individual with digital signature, digital experience now is highly mobile, and every organization is having to deal with a huge amount of attrition. And I think organizations are going to work hard at creating better connectivity, whether digital, whether a hybrid, to I think hold on to their workforces. So these are challenges that we expect organizations to grapple with in the next 12 months or so. I look forward to interacting with Ninad, Sudipta, Krishnanjit, and Ashok today. And without further ado, the way I was thinking was, hopefully I would request each of you to just talk about yourself a little bit, give your perspective on how do you see the digital revolution happening out, and then maybe I can ask you a question or two. And then if we have time remaining, we will go to the audience, but we'll see about that. And with that, if I may first invite Sudipta, you to go first and talk about yourself and then your outlook on digital. Hi, Sudipta. Mrs. Basu. You're on mute.
Hello, thank you, Ms. Harish. Ms. Raki has already given a brief introduction of myself. So I'm not going to repeat that thing.
Okay. So in that case, let me ask you a question, and then when we go to the next panelist, we'll take it from there. So I'm going to ask you a very direct question. How has your organization, which is Power Grid, transformed digitally during the pandemic? And what are your future plans for accelerating digital in your organization?
Thank you, Mr. Harish. Good afternoon to all of you. It's my great pleasure and privilege to be here. Before moving into your question, let me start with a brief introduction to Power Grid. Power Grid Corporation of India is a Maharatna central public sector enterprise. Power Grid is the fastest growing electric utility in South Asia with a global footprint in 21 countries. Power Grid has robust protected OPGW connectivity in Pan-India, including the connectivity at cable landing stations at Mumbai and Chennai. I would like to mention that Power Grid is present in 23 districts of West Bengal through its OPGW network. Power Grid has increased the reach in West Bengal and Sikkim up to all subdivisional headquarters level and block levels respectively. The telecom presence in Sikkim will be very, very helpful in establishment of digital connect of Sikkim with the rest of the country. Inter-country power transmission lines with seamless OPGW connectivity are already operational in Bangladesh at Kumila and Bheramara, in Bhutan at Galepu and Malbes, and Nepal at Muzaffarpur and Tanakpur. We are keen to provide the alternate routes through Bangladesh to major data centers at Singapore. And we are also keen for protection of northeastern region routes by connecting Kolkata and Agartala through Bangladesh, which will bypass the Chicken Neck corridor at Siliguri. Actually, Power Grid is uniquely positioned to connect major demand centers of Bhutan and Nepal and Bangladesh to cable landing station of international connectivity and the big data centers in the India. Now coming to your question, how Power Grid has digitally transformed during pandemic. We have seen that during pandemic, the major challenge for the entire globe was to sustain the business continuity amongst the lockdown, social distancing, and other challenges. The global crisis caused by the pandemic has pushed Power Grid further into the digital world. The lockdown across the countries have demanded a rise in use of information systems, networks, with massive changes in the usage patterns and the usage behavior. Power Grid has always been ready in inculcating, adopting, deploying the latest trends of technology. It is true that pandemic has augmented the need of digital transformation. Our systems and processes have worked through the pandemic, and we have also justified our investment in going digital. During pandemic, access to e-office, ESS, and all ERP and IT applications were made available through our secure virtual private networking, the VPNs, so that the employees can perform their office work securely from home. Cloud storage facility had also been extended to all the employees or users. Now, keeping in view of the technological advancement, Power Grid has already deployed its digital technology in terms of server virtualization, on-prem cloud, software-defined wide area network, SD-WAN, remote access through MPLS VPNs.
Ms. Basu, if I may, all of these things I'm sure you would have had it before the pandemic. What did you do new during the pandemic?
Yeah, because we have introduced this DDoS, distributed denial of service threat mitigation during pandemic only.
Okay, so you rolled it out during the pandemic.
Yeah, we have secured the clean pipe services, secured DNS authoritative as well as the recursive for safety and security of our internet customers. And information technology, and particularly the secured internet, was the main vital during the pandemic scenario. We as a telecom service provider, we met all the needs of our customer, and satisfaction of the customers are our main objective. At the COVID time, where the movement of site engineers were very much restricted, the works were entirely operated remotely with the help of our remote access system. Field engineers, a dependency of field engineers as sites, POPs, these are drastically reduced with implementation of virtualization at our DC and disaster recovery center. So Power Grid heavily relies on its IT network and the telecom network, which have been extended to all remote sites, all regional headquarters and other offices for carrying out their day-to-day work, and online video conferencing, online meetings, accessing enterprise email, web portal, all we have made accessible through secure VPNs over internet. The pace has increased. We have used that even the telepresence tools also to conduct the meetings of our board of directors. So we have collaborated with our customers, contractors, regulators, stakeholders digitally. And we are believe that the most important investment is the continuously skilling of our workforce. We have continued to meet all the training requirements of the employees, in-house trainings, specialized training, certification trainings, all were done through the online mode. So we can say that this early investment in digitization has helped us in the business continuity and resilience during the pandemic.
Fantastic. I think who says elephants can't dance? You know, a huge organization like Power Grid has rolled out so many new technologies and trained its workforce digitally during the pandemic. What a great story, ma'am. But with that, if I may move on to Ninad. Ninad, if I may call on you, Director and CIO Health Assured. If I may, ask you to talk about how do you see digital evolving over the few years. And then my question to you is, how do you see automation affect our future? You know, how do we upskill our workforce to make them succeed in the digital and the automation age?
Thanks a lot, Harish, and thank you, Infocom, for having us here, inviting us. Well, it's been a fruitful day, and I've been hearing to all the panelists here. A very insightful information, knowledge sharing session. To answer your question, Harish, automation, how is automation going to kind of help today, tomorrow as well? Is automation the future? The answer is absolutely a resounding yes. Automation is here, automation is going to stay, and automation is going to kind of change our lifestyles, the way we live, whether it's from the corporate perspective, whether it's from the individual perspective as well. For example, I mean, whatever work that we were doing for the past like 5 years earlier, we are now kind of banking heavily on automations, tools like RPA, which is going to kind of take over very, very soon. The other aspect is automation, how it's going to change the way we operate. So from that perspective, automation is going to certainly help us in terms of making our jobs easier, the way we stay, way we live. From the corporate standpoint, I mean, on a daily basis, we are currently looking at robotics coming into picture, RPAs coming into picture, bots have been implemented, and that is making our lives very, very easier. Does it mean that automation is going to take away the mundane activities? Yes, certainly so. Does it also mean that it is going to take away humans from their jobs? Certainly not, because it's going to kind of augment the humans in terms of their jobs. How do we upskill our workforce as of now from the automation perspective? It's pretty simple. Also, as well as it's pretty complex as well, because we have to constantly retrain ourselves, constantly be on the lookout of what next, and how do we kind of make sure that we learn from what we were and from the robotic processes that are coming forward too. There are so many learning avenues that have come on in terms of, if you look at the IITs, they have already kind of migrated from the age-old doctrine of learning processes to the digital technologies, you know. So from that perspective, certainly it is going to help us in terms of upskilling ourselves. The other aspect is, I mean, I can talk for our organization itself. We have been kind of partnering with top technology institutes in India and overseas as well, wherein we keep sort of sending our workforce for upskilling. And the feedback from these employees when they come back to us is phenomenal in terms of the way these technologies have adopted and migrated themselves from the old age doctrine to the new age technological learning processes. For a simple example, in RPA and AI as well. Earlier, we never used to find any AI programs, AI learning programs in any kind of institutes. Now, if you look at it, there are so many AI programs, certification programs that are being run by the topmost institutes in India, and of course in overseas as well. That itself makes sure and tells us that I think we are ready for the next phase in terms of upskilling our workforce in terms of the latest technologies, whether it's RPA, whether it's AI, whether it is cloud, or even robotics. So I think future is good. Future is very, very bright. And I think we are going to work in tandem with the entire robotics processes which are coming up. So humans are going to be augmented by the AI and the RPA technologies that we see currently. Back to you, Harish.
But if I may, it's also if you don't upskill, I was talking to the guy who used to help me with physical training before pandemic. He didn't upskill himself and he didn't use technology, and he lost customers. And then we've also seen people who do yoga instructors or even physical instructors. They just went online and now they just put a camera at home and they can reach a much wider audience. So to your point, upskilling people is going to be critical. Otherwise, one person can do the task of something that in the pre-digital work maybe thousands of people would do.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely bang on. And that is something which is absolutely required. Change is constant, and change is something which is required to be adopted by everybody, whether it is the people who are training or the people who are getting trained. And that's where the upskilling comes into picture. I think you use a very pertinent example in terms of the fitness trainers, wherein during the pandemic itself, they found themselves without any training exercises or without any customers, right? So they went online. And a very typical example is, since I come from the healthcare industry, and as we know, the healthcare industry is was fully sort of inclined towards in-person consultations. The doctors used to kind of treat their patients whilst they are talking to them, whilst in person physically, right? And from that particular situation, now the doctors have, whether it's forcibly, but they have to adopt themselves in going online. So there was a sea change in the medical and the healthcare industry, wherein everybody is kind of making a beeline towards digital, and the age-old doctrine of physical examination is probably now augmented by teleconsultancy, telehealth, and so on and so forth. There is an absolute leap which the healthcare industry has taken in this particular perspective. So yes, upskilling themselves, whether it's the fitness trainers, whether it is the medical practitioners, and also whether it's the customers and patients, all have joined the bandwagon. Like I said, forcibly, but then I think this is now the future.
So digital is here to stay, and adapt or die. That's the language we're going to hear. Anyways, moving on from health to banking, Krishenjit, Senior VP Technology at bankbazaar.com. Welcome, sir. Look forward to hearing your perspectives on how the digital revolution is affecting us. And the question that I would have on top of that for you would be, how should CIOs or CDOs deal with the quantum of data that is being generated now, by the digital revolution? And also, how can you use that data to further improve your business?
Thanks, Harish. Good afternoon, everyone. So Bank Bazaar is an online marketplace for, it's a neutral online marketplace for all financial products. So if you're looking for a loan or a credit card, you can come to a site, you can compare, and then we will, based on your demographics, we'll recommend a certain product for you, but you have the choice of picking the product that suits your need, and we will complete that in a digital and paperless manner. So digital is the footprint on which we are born. So and with VKYC, it's extended all the more. So digital is the basis on which we are growing today. So to answer your question, Harish, digital transformation has taken the industry by storm. Okay, so it's been one of the most critical initiative driving organizational success. In this post-pandemic, the response is all as you rightly said, it's all going to be about data. So new types of data are going to be created. How you process that data will be important. In our case also, like in Bank Bazaar, consumer behavior has completely changed. The new normal is that consumers don't want to go to a particular place, hand over different documents, nor do they want anyone to come to their place, right? To pick up documents and stuff. Consumers wants contactless and access to credits. So we feel that digital and paperless is the way to go, right? So this possesses several challenges for CIOs and people like us, and now we've been called not CIOs but more chief data officers, right? So it's very important that how we utilize and manage this data. So some of the key things that we do is data quality, data integrity, that's become very important. How do we do data governance? Also, especially about data privacy, how do you take care of the data security aspect of it? So first of all, what we need to do is we need to define a culture so that, the data understanding and the data management, that's the key part. So what we have done is we have created golden records for collection purposes with golden record access control. We have defined good enterprise reporting. We use self-service reporting tools. Also, we have created data dictionaries to make sure that functioning of data governance and identity management is taken care of. But it's very important to educate, evangelize, and also tell story of data success to your users, right? Only then the adoption will happen. Also, in order to digitally transform, what businesses are today doing is they are in the process of becoming more data efficient, and businesses are constantly moving their servers to the cloud. While cloud is definitely more efficient and faster and safer, but there is no guarantee of absolute data security. And also in the banking and financial sector like us, it's becoming more attractive to attackers. So hence, monitoring of this data, governing the enterprise data is very important. We also need to enable data usability, availability, and efficiency. So all the required tools and practices should be there in order to protect data. So data is very important, and we need to make sure that we manage it and control it well.
So, and I'm going to make a joke here. So, while you can work from home during the digital age, you can also steal from anywhere in the digital age. And so that, the person who could earlier rob a bank had to come into a bank with a gun or a knife. Now that, and had to be physically present in the bank. Now that guy could be in any part of the world and come into the network using, just skills, just technology skills. So that is something that you really have to watch out for.
Absolutely.
And we heard of so many, cyber crime stories during the pandemic. Thankfully, I think people have really matured, organizations have matured in the last few months, and they've taken action, because within EY, I actually come from the cyber background and, work with clients on cyber. And we heard quite a few of those stories during, I would say, the beginning of the pandemic.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's increased multifolds.
Yes. So we heard from Krishnenjit the need for data integrity, the need for data security. Cloud adoption has gone through the roof. Monitoring of data, watching your network is, I think these things have become, I would say, hygiene rather than, nice to have things. And I think you just have to keep tightening this as you go. Okay, we'll move on. Last but not the least, Mr. Cherian, Ashok Cherian, welcome, sir. CIO, Page Industries. Now your challenges are slightly different from Ninad's and Krishenjit's. Both of them fulfill digitally. In your case, the fulfillment is physical. So your challenges would also be slightly different. So my question to you is, as the CIO role continues to expand and as technology evolves, how should these CIOs be better prepared or better equipped to lead the function and enable the business? And I'm going to throw in one example here. In the case of Bank Bazaar or Health Assure, like I said, the entire life cycle is digital, and they're already there. But in your case, something like 3D technology may come in 2, 3, 5 years time, whereby your customers might say, just ship me the design, I'm going to print it, fit it to my size and print it. And this is something which will probably start hitting your organization and similar organization where today the fulfillment is not digital. So hence the question, as the role as the CIO/CDO, and CDO means digital and data, continues to expand and technology evolves, how should these folks better equip themselves?
Thanks. Nice to be part of this panel. In fact, while yes, my direct fulfillment or the manufacturing may not be sort of digital, but end of the day, digital is a very essential part of any organization in that sense that there are no more. I mean, the scene is not like they were traditional organization and they are digitally born in the cloud. What do you call technology organization? Actually, that is actually fading, I would say. I mean, it is really becoming imperative for any organization to become more digitally sort of savvy, to become more digital in everything what they do, if they need to sustain and foster. And that's my belief, and that's what is actually happening. So for us also, we have really, going in the same path. Just to come to your question, I think we heard enough on, and I also strongly feel that digital is going to be a key differentiator, and data is the new oil, and we all know that, and we have talked enough on that, But so because of all these factors, the CIO role is actually really changing, and it is not that this pandemic has really forced it. As I see, it is that change has really started a while ago, maybe around 5 to 7 years now. It is really changing, and the only thing what the pandemic has done is accelerate the change. Maybe because the various pressures which is mounting on the business is actually getting passed on to digital capability build and all that, which they want fast, agile and quick. So I think the whole role is really changing and transforming, I would say. Earlier IT used to be a sort of support function, or the CIO used to be a functional leader. Now I think it is imperative that a CIO becomes a strategic business leader. He has to eat, drink and talk business, and technology less, because today technology is sort of becoming, I'm sorry to say, it is becoming more commoditized. There are a lot of options. You have to pick and choose. Obviously you need to have the skills to pick and choose and govern. I agree, but if you don't know your business, and if you don't are not able to sort of connect it, and if you're not able to add business value, then you are actually really failing in what you are actually trying to do. That's the way the CIO role is evolving, as I very clearly see. And obviously it has gone beyond the traditional the cost takeout, or the automation and things like that is actually becoming it is now almost done. If you really look at it, most of the companies, depending on the maturity and the digital savviness, they have different stages, but it is almost done. Now it's time to transform it into a core driver to sort of get more business value. So it is, how do we get more digital products introduced? How do we actually leverage data? How do we actually define a data strategy? How do we define let's say a data value chain? All that. How do we really synergize various data points? How do we really make differentiated capabilities for the business and even products for the business, leveraging the data? Okay, so that is where the whole thing is coming in, and it's actually a transformation, and it's not no more a sort of a disjointed transformation. It is today the opportunity is humongous, because if you really look at it, as I see, the ecosystem has also evolved. The technology is supporting us, the networks are supporting us, the infrastructure is supporting us, and there is no better time to be a CIO. And because there are so much of opportunities, you got to just connect the dots and move things in such a way that the business is sort of getting the differentiation out of all these things. So I see the role, it is actually getting reimagined. It is the role has to actually set a new sort of path for the IT function as such in the organization. It has to sort of reinvent the tech delivery, just get into more fast and agile mode of delivery and things like that. How do we become more flexible? How do we become more, how do we ensure that we collaborate with the business in a much better and much faster main in one side. Another side, how do we sort of establish very forward-looking tech partnership with partners, and so that the whole ecosystem is sort of connected from end to end. And then obviously, how do we future-proof the organization? As we have sort of touched based on things like security, cyber security. How do we build modular platforms? How do we bring in flexible architecture? All that. So it is all getting more and more important, because as the business criticality increases, so the whole thing becomes very, very, very fragile. If something goes wrong with the digital capabilities and digital architecture and things like that, the organization's business continuity is at stake. So as one side we progress, the other side you have to actually be looking at the future and seeing that the business continuity is also sort of taken care. So in a nutshell, if I need to just summarize, you need to really become a business leader who understands the business nuances, and not just become a support function or an enabling function, but to become a driver in terms of coming up with your own ideas and thoughts, and to complement the discussions, and not just be a sort of executioner, and be partnering with the business right from the beginning, from the conception. Even for conceptualizing, you can be a partner. So I think that is where the whole role is changing, and as I see, it's going to become even more sort of profound as things become more digital, and the capabilities and the differentiation and the businesses become more sort of addicted, or sort of become very, very embraced with digital.
Thank you so much, Ashok. I think what I really took away from what you said is that the CIO or the CDO is no longer a support function, but really a full business partner, with a who's really enabling the business using data. And then I think what's being helpful is the ecosystem has really evolved in the terms of availability of technology, availability of bandwidth, availability of cloud. I think these have really helped us use technology, and it's really more about putting it together. I just had, I think, couple of comments. Audience, if you would like to ask one or two questions, if you could type in the chat box. We have maybe 5 more minutes, and I can read out if it's pertinent. Meanwhile, I'm going to ask just one question to all of you, open question, and I would like to take your feedback on that. Is work from anywhere here to stay? How do we hold on to our workforce and improve them, during this work from anywhere situation? And Ashok, since you are holding the baton, maybe you would like to go first.
Yeah, okay. So I think the work from anywhere is going to stay. I feel so, but obviously not for this. The way it is going to be done is going to be different, because it's not going to be like, okay, from my perspective, let me tell, we are operating still today from home. From the last 2000, 20 March. Even today we are working from home. So because we have a very robust, sort of network and a robust sort of system supporting the whole thing. So we are able to deliver everything remotely and support everything. So, but then there are companies are at different stages, and different type of companies have got different needs. I do understand that the manufacturing guys have to go to some manufacturers. So, but then still, I feel that it's going to be a hybrid model which is going to be emerging, and that will be really interesting. And especially with the new millennials coming to sort of play, and as they take over from us, as we sort of give the mantle to them, they will be really taking it to the next level. I think that's my view.
Krishnanjit?
So there are
Yeah.
questions from the
Sorry,
audience.
Raji,
Can I?
you're saying something?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the question, there are a couple of questions from the audience. Firstly, there's a startup business provider. This is a question from Mr. Sudip Majumdar in the audience. He's asking that he has a startup business doing online marketing services for handicrafts made in Bengal. What is the basic IT infrastructure that he can do to help his business to go online? Any inputs?
Well, it is a very generic question. The answer need not be one. There could be many. He could just list himself in Amazon and be there, available to everyone, anyone.
Yeah. So one of the beauty of the cloud is that it's a pay-per-use, right? So you don't have to have a huge investment that you had to have earlier. So earlier you have to put up servers, you have to put hosting, you have to buy internet. All those things are gone. Today with the cloud, you can do it anytime. Just use your credit card and you are up and running. You have servers online, you've got the internet connection, everything. Pick up and choose any cloud provider for whichever is works for you, and then you can pay as you grow. You can increase your footprint as you grow. So it's very simple today, much simpler than what it used to be way back.
So you're basically saying that one doesn't need to invest so much in all the assets. Everything is available. Absolutely. And the entire infrastructure is now available on cloud, and it's a good setup for SMEs to get into this business. That Absolutely. Is how most of the people are getting into their own businesses.
Yep.
So the next question is to Mr. Krishnanjit Roy. It is on in digital revolution, how crypto is being accepted by Indian government and how this will map the blockchain business in India.
So it's too early to kind of say how the government will react to crypto. As of now, I don't think so. The necessary, setup is in place in order to kind of, people are interacting in crypto, and they are doing a lot of businesses in crypto. But from a usability perspective and how the government will react to it, I think it is too early. There have been some signals that crypto might become a challenge to the regular currency, so that there could be some restrictions on that. But yeah, it enables you to kind of do interaction borderless. So there's a lot of advantages of crypto, but it's too early for us to kind of say how the government is going to react to a crypto.
All right, one more question, sir. I think we have time for one more question. Is if you had to identify top 5 priorities for CIOs, now that we are getting out of the pandemic and moving into the next era, if you could just list 5 priorities.
Yeah, I'll let somebody else answer. I've already answered 2 questions, so maybe some Ninad or Sudipta can answer that.
Yeah, let me take a stab at it. I mean, the first and foremost priority coming out of pandemic, now that everything is digital, everything is online, data security is the prime sort of importance and criticality. It is the topmost priority for any sort of business, whether it is banking, whether it is healthcare, whether it is sort of trading and so on and so forth. That remains the first, certainly the first priority. The second priority is obviously in terms of making sure that everything is available online. Gone are the days of course, it depends on the type of business that we are or industry that one is in. However, online presence is absolutely important. And from that standpoint, whatever we had in terms of offline needs to be migrated to the online. So that's the second most priority. The third most priority, in my opinion, certainly is extremely innovative and spot on customer experience. In today's day and age, everything revolves around customer experience. If there is no customer experience, not appropriate, the customers then have several other avenues, certain other alternatives and options. At a blink of an eye, the customers would kind of go about acting their sort of other alternatives as well. So that's the third most priority in terms of the customer experience. The fourth priority is in terms of analytics and data science. If one has to improve and improvise their products and make sure that they are up there and differentiate themselves, they have to kind of look up to the data science and analytics to make sure that the new products come into picture, trends are identified, making sure that the customers are well researched and the needs and requirements and wants are more researched. And that's typical example is, of course, the AI which Amazon or Google sort of adopts and have implemented. It's all about making sure how do we know the customer. So the fourth priority is obviously about knowing the customer and their priorities as well. And of course, the fifth priority is about the business itself from the technology standpoint. And as Ashok mentioned earlier as well, technologists are no more technologists. They have to be business oriented. They have to kind of make sure that they change themselves into business partners. And that's where the synergy between the technologists and the business comes into picture. In terms of everybody nowadays knows, most of them knows technology, if you really ask me, because infra is already available at touch of a click of a button. So that's where the technology business orientation comes into picture, wherein almost everybody has to kind of make themselves oriented towards and inclined towards business. So those are the 5 priorities that come to my mind, at least, and I hope that helps the entire audience to understand how to go about it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think it was really a pleasure, and I think great questions from the audience. My co-panelists, thank you so much for joining us today. Sudipta, Ashok, Krishnanjit, and Ninad. It was absolutely wonderful and delightful talking to you today, and I hope to look forward to you in a physical form next year at the Infocom. Till then, thank you so much. See you soon. Thank you, Rakhi.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you, Sudipta ma'am, for joining us. I'd like to thank the chairperson, Mr. Harish Agarwal, sir, for moderating the session and taking time out of his really busy schedule to do this for us at Infocom. It's been a pleasure to have you, sir. And I thank all the other panelists, Mr. Ninad Rajesh, sir, Mr. Krishnanjit Roy, sir, Mr. Ashok Cherian, sir, and Ms. Sudipta Basu. That was the technology panel.